everyone. Good to have you here for our time of sermon preparation, the time I give to reflecting more intensely on the readings and starting to put my thoughts together for my sermon that I will preach on Sunday. As we prepare for this 29th Sunday of Ordinary Time in Year A, we remember too that it is Mission Sunday. Mission Sunday is celebrated throughout the Universal Church, and it helps us to recall, to focus on our mission as church. What is our mission as church? To go out and to share Jesus with others, to proclaim the gospel, to spread the kingdom of love, of hope, and of peace. And so, as we reflect on these readings now, but also as you pray and reflect over the next couple of days, I would ask that you keep that thought that we are a church on mission, that this is Mission Sunday. I hope that you will keep that in the back of your mind and allow your reflection on the readings to be influenced by the Great Commission that we have all been given to go out into the world. So, what are our readings for this Sunday, Mission Sunday? The first reading is taken from the prophet Isaiah, chapter 45, verse 1, and then verses 4 to 6. Our responsorial psalm is Psalm 96. And then our second reading is the start of St. Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians. You will remember that for the last few Sundays we have been reading from St. Paul's letter to the Philippians. Now we turn to his letter to the Thessalonians. We believe, the church scripture scholars, church historians believe that this is the oldest piece of New Testament writing. That this letter was most probably written in about 52 to 55 AD. In other words, about 20 years after the death and resurrection of Jesus. So it's getting back to our roots, if you like. Then the gospel is from Matthew's Gospel, chapter 22, verses 15 to 21. Let's have a look at that first reading from the prophet Isaiah. This reading is in the chapters that we ascribe to 2nd Isaiah. And in these chapters, the prophet is speaking words of hope and encouragement to the people who are in exile. Now you can imagine they're feeling rather down and maybe sorry for themselves and are wondering when they can, if they will ever be able to return to Jerusalem, to the promised land. And the prophet speaks words of hope and encouragement to them. Also, we hear of this Persian king Cyrus. He was obviously a pagan, a Gentile. He was not Jewish. And yet the Lord will use this pagan, this non-Jewish king to effect his plan of restoring the people to Jerusalem. It will be through the action and the opening up of King Cyrus that they will be able to go back to Jerusalem. And so a message for us there. God uses all sorts of people and situations to achieve his will, including people we least expect, we would think would not be involved in God's plan. Another important point to notice in this reading from the prophet Isaiah is this focus on monotheism. What is monotheism, that there is one God and not a whole lot of gods. One God with a big G rather than a whole number of little gods with a little g. Okay, and that's important because the people in exile were beginning to doubt the one God and beginning to think, well, maybe he isn't in control. Maybe he doesn't care for us. And they're looking at all the gods with little g's of the Babylonians, of the Gentiles, and thinking, well, maybe they're more powerful. And the prophet reminds them that God is in control. Right at the end of the extract that we have for this Sunday, we read the words, I am the Lord, there is no other. A reminder to each of us too in our modern world. We get carried away, taken up by other things, and we make them our gods. But there is only one God, and we must keep our trust and our focus on him. So that's the first reading. The second reading, as I said, St. Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians. What's happened? It's about 52-ish AD, and Paul has established this community in Thessalonica, a rather thriving, prosperous, quite a busy merchant town. And he leaves them after first preaching the gospel there. He leaves them and he goes to Corinth. As he leaves Thessalonica, he knows that the faith of this new little church is very weak and small. Anyway, he goes to Corinth, and he's really having a bad time in Corinth. We know that the people in Corinth were not easy, and I think Paul's a little down and a little sort of maybe questioning his mission. Anyway, Timothy comes along and finds him in Corinth and reports that the little church in Thessalonica is actually doing rather well. And that lifts Paul's spirits greatly, so he writes to them. And we hear in this letter a sense of joy and hope with this new community. We also hear Paul use what is called a triad, and this repeats itself. It's here now in the first part of the letter, but we will also read about it in the last part of the letter. What is that triad? Faith, hope, and charity. And we know those things come over and over again through Paul's writings. And so it's good for us to be alert to them. Paul is clearly impressed by the faith and the hope and the love of this new community. And he encourages them to put their faith into action by the works they do. And that too, on this Mission Sunday, should remind us that it is no good just saying, I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic. No, our words, our faith needs to be translated into action. And that action is the spread of the gospel, working to bring others to know and love Jesus Christ. Was that not Paul's entire focus? It should be ours too, as modern day apostles. Okay, so the gospel is that story about the coin. Who does the coin belong to? Now, this little story is clearly a story about devious hypocrites who try to trap Jesus. Whose face is on the coin? That famous question Jesus asks the hypocrites the people that have come to try and entrap him. Isn't it interesting to note that they're trying to trap him? Because if he says yes to their question, if he affirms their question, then he gets himself into trouble. If he is negative and disagrees with them, he gets himself into trouble. And so Jesus is in a catch-22 situation, but he deftly and very cleverly gets himself out of this trap that they have set for him. And as I say, isn't it interesting to note, when Jesus wants to show them the coin, he asks them for the coin. He doesn't have a coin. They have the Roman coin with the image of Caesar on it. They give him the coin. Interesting, huh? They're trying to trap Jesus, but in fact it's them that have the coin and not Jesus. This little story and Jesus' dealing with this tricky situation has been used by politicians and people involved with the social order to suggest that the church shouldn't get involved in political social issues. And at the same time, this story has been used by the church to indicate that they should be involved in these things. Sometimes also the church has used Jesus' comment about giving back to God to say that's the reason we should tithe, that's why we should contribute. But take note, it's not give to the church, it's give back to God. And what are we giving back to God? Well, as we conclude our stewardship month here in the parish, that question should ring some sort of bell for us. What are we giving back to God? Not just our money, but ourselves. God has gifted everything we are, everything we have to us. We are to give back, says Jesus. Give back to God. Remember what I've been saying? That our giving is part of our worship. We don't give to God to meet budgets for the parish, to make up shortfalls. That's not why we give back to God. We give back to God because He has given to us, and our giving is a sign of our love and our worship of Him. And so that I hope that comes out for us in that gospel passage. The gospel also links, as so often happens, to the first reading, and it's reasonably clear. What Jesus is trying to make clear is that God is sovereign King Caesar over all. Nothing is greater than God. No king is greater than God. And we owe Him our total allegiance. That's what the prophet Isaiah was getting at when he said, I am the Lord, there is no other. Dear friends, I hope these thoughts help you as you prepare for the 29th Sunday of Ordinary Time, Mission Sunday in the Church. God bless you and take care. Bye-bye.